Hey everybody, Max here, and today we will be looking at the #1 Marvel Legends figure that I have been wanting ever since I started figure collecting. I I knew he was not going to be far behind when it was announced that Marvel could now reprint the original ROM series because it had been locked up with a lot of different copyright issues and that sort of thing. And but now that the series has been released in 3 hardcovers, you see Volume 1 and Volume 2 flanking the figure here. And now finally he is here, and I cannot wait to get him out of the package. There are some positives and negatives about this. I can tell the figure looks fantastic, but a couple of things I was hoping for more. I guess I was hoping for more because I'm such a huge ROM fan. I was hoping for just something more than just being a part of a random gimmick line or wave in a blister card. So, but we'll get him out of the package. We're here to talk about the figure. I might talk a little bit about the series and just kind of show off a couple of things that I hope we eventually may get. I hope this guy sells so well that we get other Space Knights. So let me get him out of the package and we'll talk about it. So stick around. Okay, so here he is out of the package, and before we dive into the figure and the accessories and everything, I want to talk briefly about the package. So I'm a bigger fan of boxes for my figures than I am for blister cards. So I understand this probably saves on shelf space and packaging costs and all that kind of stuff. And it's not a bad looking thing. I mean, it's got some great Michael Golden artwork here. These were from 2 different covers early on in the ROM series, and that's really cool that is the art that got showcased, even though Sal Buscema was the overarching overall artist for the whole series. He didn't write and draw every issue. Steve Ditko replaced him later on near the end of the run. But fantastic artwork. I definitely dig this. I like the way it recreates a classic comic, and I get where they were going for, with the, this kind of tiny recreation of the cover. I completely misunderstood when they revealed this guy during one of the Hasbro Pulse videos. I thought they were recreating the whole comic. I thought this thing was going to open up and you be able to read the whole comic, but no, it's just the cover. Yeah, I guess I just missed that part. I just misunderstood them, but it's interesting. I don't see the point of this. I'll be honest with you. This is not something that I care about. It's going to go into a box. It's not anything he's going to be displayed with. But I guess I get where they were going for, and these are the figures in the wave and everything. However, I'm such a big fan of ROM. I was hoping for him to be more of a deluxe figure. I was really hoping for him to be like in a deluxe box. He's missing some of his weapons. I mean, he comes with 2 weapons, and I was hoping that he would, instead of this little comic gimmick, I was hoping he would be a part of a whole other wave of Space Knights. I really was hoping. It just seemed like there was such hype, and there's so many people that are really clamoring for this figure. I mean, he's the #1. I mean, I really waiting for Hasbro to give me a good Daredevil figure, something that doesn't come packaged with something else, because it's just, or one that just really looks solid. And so Daredevil's typically my #1. ROM became my #1 when these became available, when it was announced and everything, and we saw the digital renders a year ago, and they gave it, showed us a prototype and everything. And I really had my hopes set on like a deluxe figure with all of his weapons. So this is his neutralizer. It is, yes, it's not a lethal weapon, but it can be used that way. It basically opens up a portal to Limbo, and that's where he banishes the dire wraiths when he tracks them down because they're shapeshifters. And this is his analyzer that he uses to scan for shape-shifting, so for dire wraiths that are in a different form and everything. And the detail's really good. It's recreated very well, looks exactly like the comic, exactly like the original Parker Brothers toy. It's very cool. You can tell, I mean, they did a pretty good job on the silver paint, but the plastic is silver, but you can tell they didn't go all the way down because you just see the bare plastic. And I get that. I'm not complaining about that. That's where he's going to hold it, and it's going to be in his hand. And I guess you just didn't want to see some paint rub there, or it may rub off anyway. Really cool. I mean, it's really great. However, he does not come. He has a third piece of equipment called his translator, and it's a big boxy thing, and I'll show you a picture here from one of these later on, but they didn't do that. So instead of giving us a translator and making him a deluxe figure, I would have paid $10 more. If they just give me the translator, put him in a box, I don't know, just some blast effects, I wanted it all. So instead, he's just stuck in a wave with a bunch of random characters, and it just seemed like Rom deserves better than that, and he should have had just his own singular presentation, I think, because I really was hoping it would be like a new Space Knight wave. And I'll show you some of the other Space Knights, and I think there's some pictures in here in the the second volume. I'll show you that later. But like I said, he's missing some things. This is the blast effect. The only blast effect that he comes with, and while it's nice to see something new, this is not how his blaster or his neutralizer or his analyzer are displayed in the comic. It's more, honestly, it looks more like Cyclops' optic blast. So I was hoping, I would have been totally fine with like a retooled optic blast that you plug in, because there's a port. I mean, it's open right there. I was hoping that it would plug in right there instead of having this open port on the effect itself that slides over, and it just fires at a point. And like I said, I don't hate it. It seems a little off center when it's on there, and it's cool. I mean, they tried something new, but I honestly, it doesn't line up right, and I don't know if you have this, if you're going to get this figure and you have some Cyclops figures, let me know in the comments section if the optic blast will fit in this thing, because I feel like that would have been a better representation of how this weapon is used and displayed in the comic. It comes with two sets of hands, an open hand for the left hand, and in the comic he basically just has this like mitten. He doesn't have individual fingers, and I guess that was just Sal's way of making him easier to draw, and maybe the Parker Brothers figure, that's how he was displayed. He didn't have individual digits, but at any rate, I'd never had the original Parker Brothers figure. However, I do remember a kid in daycare when I was really, really little. He had one, and it blew my mind. And then fast forward a few years later, and I'm collecting comic books, and I find a house ad in another Marvel comic that has this guy on it, and I got really intrigued by, who is this guy, Rom? And I started checking out some of the back issues at my local comic shop, and ended up with most of the run. So I never had the whole run, so I'm really glad to be able to get the full run in these three hardcovers. So it comes with a right-handed fist. Unfortunately, he does not come with a left-handed fist. I wish he did. And then he has the two open or gripping hands here for gripping his weapons. Now, his weapons, they would disappear, so he could call them back and forth from limbo. I think it was limbo or the void or something like that, and or subspace. And so they never, when he needed one, they would appear in his hand as whenever he needed, if he needed the analyzer or the translator, they would just vanish and go away. So he's a humanoid cyborg. He comes from a race of Galadorians. They were fighting the Dire race. They invaded their planet, and he was the first Space Knight. He was the first one to sacrifice his humanity and be bonded with this super suit, this very powerful suit of armor. So he's trapped in this thing as he travels the universe seeking out. So the Galadorians, beat back the Dire race, but he decided to go back into space to protect other planets, and he lands on Earth to stop the Dire race, who have infiltrated the Earth in a lot of different ways. And so he starts out completely misunderstood. He's like a villain. People think he's just some heartless robot destroying people because it looks like he kills people with this thing instead of sending them to limbo. And so it's a really great story. Bill Mantlo was the writer. And fantastic series. You should definitely check it out if you want this figure. I'm sure you probably already have, but let's dive into this guy. So one thing that they did right, they got his height right. And that was one thing that I was afraid they wouldn't get right. I was afraid he's going to be a normal 6-inch figure. And instead, he's about 7 inches tall, which is great. So here he is next to She-Hulk. So he's about as tall as she is, and probably about the same. I mean, her hair makes her a little bit taller. So he definitely is taller than a standard. Oh, let's see. Here's a G.I. Joe classified I just happen to have right handy. So yeah. So he's taller than, so about an inch taller. So that's great. He definitely needed to be taller. And then here he is next to Joe Fixit. And of course, the Hulk is always bigger. And yeah, so there was I think the Hulk, I think Ron guest starred in the Hulk, which was also drawn by Bill Mantlo or written by Bill Mantlo and drawn by Sal Buscema at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but that just gives you an idea of just how big this guy is, and which is great. Proportions are great. He, as you can tell, this is a house ad and a volume 1, and I absolutely love this cover. And so you can tell that they recreated everything. So he's got the red of the eyes, the red. These are knobs and displays. And so yeah, and the paint turned out really well. I was really, really afraid that this was going to end up being one of those cheap, like that second Ultron that's just nothing but silver plastic, silver gray plastic with all kinds of pore lines all over it. They did not do that, thankfully. So, however, there are a couple of places where the paint kind of gets a little clumpy, but on a whole, it is a fairly good paint job. In the joints, you can tell in some places the actual color of the plastic, but on a whole, this looks great. The eyes, I mean, it's fine. I was actually kind of half expecting. I think I'm probably happier with this. I mean, it's just probably a little sticker and red eyes to indicate. But in the comic, it always it was always drawn like this, so that it's almost like the light was coming out from his helmet, and I was kind of wondering if they would do like an effect where there'd be ports in the eyes, so that it could look something like that. Probably wouldn't look great. You'd end up with holes in the helmet, and if you lost the pieces. So this is a decent compromise. So at any rate, the figure, like I said, has really good range of motion. He's on a disc. It's a floating neck and a disc, so he can look back very far, given he's very boxy. And he can actually look down fairly well. I mean, his chin will hit his chest plate, the bottom of his chest plate, but he gets pretty good side to side. I'm having to work it out a little bit. It's a little stiff, but turning his head around, yes, these parts of these upper jet pieces, a part of his backpack, kind of get in the way a little bit. But on a whole, I mean, you can get it all the way around. So there's that. And yes, his head looks like an old high school computer monitor, but that's just the way he was drawn. That's the way the original figure looked. So head looks good. Neck articulation is great. The arms, you can get almost a Y pose. So pretty good. Good bicep swivel, right? And going around, the angle of this chest piece, yes, you can get the arm all the way around, but you kind of have to, angle the arm out a bit to get it all the way around. But obviously there's no butterfly joint. I don't think a butterfly, it wouldn't have worked with this guy. They would have had to break up the sculpt right in here. I'm fine with that. It is what it is. However, wrist, of course, wrist go all the way around. Horizontal hinge on both hands. I'm really impressed with what they did here. So he has lower ab crunch, which is something we've seen. They adapted kind of what we've seen with some of the Spider-Man figures, like the Amazing Fantasy figure. So he can bend over fairly well. Now, yes, it looks kind of funky right here on the back, and it's a really good ab crunch. It's not loose or anything like that, very sturdy. And then he turns, this upper piece is a diaphragm cut, and he turns all the way around, and you get pretty good side to side, which I'm fairly impressed with. Now the jet pack it's attached. So, but even with that, you can still kind of, if you angle it right, you can go back, and then you can get him into a decent looking flying pose. So that's really good, and paint's really good with the reds there. You can't always see it, but yeah, pretty good range of motion. I'm very pleased, very impressed that they went out and redesigned this. They made something completely new. They didn't reuse anything. So yeah, it works really well. Paint, like I said, looks really well. Looks good. A little kind of clumpy around here, a little bit. I guess that's just to be expected. The jetpack looks exactly as it does in the comic, angled ports. So this is my first gripe, or maybe second gripe after the packaging. No ports for blast effects. It didn't come with a blast effect for a jet. Hey, if you got Iron Man, at least they could have hollowed out these holes and put holes here so that we could at least put some of those mini Iron Man blast effects that we probably all have floating around in a box somewhere, and we could have made this an actual, we could have added a jetpack effect. So that's, I don't see why they didn't do that when they went ahead and they designed it and they even painted it. So I just don't see why they just didn't bother. So I'm hesitant to cause any structural damage to this guy, but I guess you could get a little drill and drill these out, and you probably need to some calipers to measure it and make sure the blast effects would fit. But I guess you could do it. I don't really want to do that, at least not with a brand new figure. The legs, okay, so let me get his arms. Pretty good splits overall. I mean, it's not complete splits, but he wasn't like a guy that was doing a lot of kicking or anything. He was a powerhouse cyborg that mainly used his weapons to defend himself. So the thigh cut is in his, what I can't remember, another YouTuber said his space thigh highs. So Dan Hu, I think Dan Hu said this, called him space thigh highs, and I responded to put a comment on there that made me laugh, because it just kind of took me. I was like, yep, definite space thigh highs for sure, and it hides the thigh cut, which is great. Attention to detail there, and very generous. And the knees, really good range of motion on these legs. Oh, I did not do the arms. So pinless all the way around, and you can probably tell the color of the plastic. The actual color is more of a silvery gray. It's not painted, the actual joint piece. So, but good range of motion there. No complaints. I do wonder and hope that this paint job does last a good long while, because I don't know how I would recreate it. I don't want to just hit it with silver spray paint. It might not look exactly right. So, okay, so I did the knees, and then so big honking cyborg feet, look exactly like the picture, which is great, and generous ankle rocker, good range of motion, so he can, you can get him more in flying poses there. So, like I said, I wanted so much more in terms of packaging and presentation. Yes, portholes would be great for blast effects on the jet, would be great. The translator, that's a misfire. I would have liked to have seen these boots, his feet. They're so big. Why not give us a toe articulation? That would have been great. Yeah, it would have broken up the sculpt here, this little ridges down the foot. I think I would have been fine. Maybe they toyed around with it and it just didn't look right, but I think for such a big figure, and he, I think toe articulation would come in handy for a figure like this. So I would have liked to have seen that, but that is ROM. I don't think I left anything out. He is a fantastic figure. Just the presentation, the look recreates the comic just so accurately, and I'm so happy with it. Like I said, I would have preferred, to get his translator and not this, and a different blast effect, and then portholes for the jetpack. But on a whole, this guy is a warp factor of 9 points. Oh, I'm going to give him high, 9.8. Yeah, he's at 9.8. Yeah, I'm only taking 0.2 off for the lack of accessories that I wanted to see, but the figure is just so good that's what's rating me high, making me rate him higher. So a warp factor of 9.8. And I'm gonna pause for just a second. I'm going to show you guys some other figures. I'm going to show you the translator, so give me a second. I'm going to open these guys up and show you the translator, what that looks like, and then some other figures that I'm hoping we might get some other Space Knights down the line. So, okay, stick around. Okay, so here's a picture. This is from page 506, 507 of Volume 1. ROM, this is when he was crossing over with Power Man and Iron Fist, and this is his translator here. And he uses it to learn Spanish. He's trying to communicate with his Spanish boy, and so this is what it's supposed to look like. And he uses it. He doesn't use it much in the series, but it is something that the original Parker Brothers figure came with, and they did not recreate it here, which is a disappointment. But that's what it's supposed to look like. In Volume 2, he uses it to learn the language of the whales, which is pretty cool. So that is the translator. So I wish maybe in a later release we might get that. I don't know, who knows. But anyway, that's the translator. And then here we have some more Space Knights. Now these have never been, to my knowledge, ever been recreated in figure form. Maybe IDW did something similar, like when they had the license. I think there was an actual ROM figure based on their design for him. But I would love to see each of these figures in figure form, or characters in figure form. So we got Tarm the Seeker, we got Unam the Unseen, we got Rock the Breaker, Vera the Scanner, Vola the Trapper, and Plor the Pulsar. And then another one, and this is Starshine. So she's a prominent Space Knight. The original is she gets killed, and the armor is merged with Brandy, and that's Rom's love interest. She's a human woman, and so this is her second iteration. So the second version 2 of Starshine. Let's see if I can find a yeah. So this is kind of what she looked like originally. So you can see that there. So yeah, either one of these would be awesome. So I would absolutely love to see more characters. And then, of course, we have the Dire Wraiths, and I don't think those have ever been recreated either. So you have the males that are totally into science, and then the females that are into magic, and the females are just horrifying. And I think they were depicted. My brother was into X-Men, and he had the life-death issue with Storm and Forge. It was drawn by Barry Windsor Smith, and there's a very graphic scene of a female Dire Wraith like killing a human and taking their form. And my mom saw that and nearly threw it away and forbade us to read comics. She thought it was just the most horrifying thing she ever saw. So and then these are the they think they called them Hellhounds or something. Yeah, Hellhounds. And so yeah, there would be there's a lot of characters, a lot of potential for different figures to be created and produced based on the ROM series. So, and I would be totally down for all of it. So Hasbro, hear me, hear the fans of ROM the Space Knight. So, all right, guys. So warp factor of 9.8 for this guy. Great figure, very happy. Check out the volumes for ROM, Volume 1, 2, and 3. I'm still waiting on Volume 3. It's back ordered, unfortunately. I waited a little too long to order it, and so now it's a little harder to get. but I order all of my omnis from cheapgraphicnovels.com. So yeah, near mint condition turned me on to those guys. So yeah. And I probably will do a review of these volumes once I get the third one and talk a little more in depth for ROM and the story and everything. So anyway, thanks guys for listening. Really appreciate you, and I will talk at you next time. And remember, in space, no one can hear you eat cheese.